John Marshall, one of the most influential Supreme Court justices and a staunch Federalist, rose from complete nothingness and ascended the political ladder with little formal education. His impact on the system of constitutional law is so large that it's extremely difficult, if not outright impossible, to imagine it without him. John was born to Thomas Marshall and Mary Randolph Keith in Germantown, Virginia, on September 24, 1755. John was the oldest of 15 siblings, having 8 sisters and 6 brothers. From an early age, John was noted for his eyes, which are described to be strong and penetrating, but beaming with intelligence and good nature. Both Thomas and Mary had no formal education, but could read and write, and though books were rare and expensive on the frontier, the Marshall family did have access to them. By age 12, John was already an avid reader, memorizing passages on Alexander Pope's Essay on Man. In 1767, a young Scottish minister came to live with the Marshall family while being tried out by the congregation, granting John with his first bit of formal education. In 1772, he received a more extensive education at the Academy of Reverend Archibald Campbell. 8 years later, in 1780, he attended William and Mary College for 6 weeks to study law and listen to lectures on law by George Wythe. At the time, James Madison was president of the college, though it was almost completely barren due to the callings of the Revolutionary War. At the outbreak of the war, John joined the Culpeper Minutemen and served as a lieutenant. He and his father fought together in battles such as the Battle of Great Bridge, Brandywine, Monmouth, and Germantown. From 1777 to 1778, John served under General Washington, enduring the harsh winter at Valley Forge. By 1779, John was a captain under Major Henry Lee, later father of General Robert E. Lee. Marshall's most significant wartime experiences were under Lee, most notably when on August 18, 1779, he and Lee led a surprise attack against a fortified enemy position at Powell's Hook, a point of land west of the Hudson. Using stealth tactics and night to cover their approach, John and his men took the British garrison, numbering in the hundreds, by complete surprise, capturing all at small loss, 2 Americans killed and 3 wounded. Prisoners were taken back to American lines, resulting in a major resurgence of morale amongst the forces. John also saw combat in January of 1781 during the invasion of Virginia. Jefferson's so-called cowardly conduct as governor of Virginia during the invasion likely shaped much of their future relationship. In 1783, John married Mary Ambler, who he had met during the time between Powell's Hook and Arnold's invasion. Their marriage lasted nearly 49 years and was by all accounts a happy one. After the invasion of Virginia, John saw no further action in the war, devoting his time to his flourishing private law practice. He made a name for himself as a well-known and well-regarded attorney. He was also noted for his rustic dressing habits, which lost him a potential client on more than one occasion. During this period, he was also active on the front lines of Virginia politics, serving in the House of Delegates from 1782 to 1790, and later from 1795 to 1796. During his time serving the House, he allied himself with the Federalist Party and supported much of their policies. It was also around this time he became head of the Federalist Party in Virginia. He also participated in the Virginia Convention debates, detailing the adoption of the Constitution. He clearly spoke in favor of the Constitution during the debates, foreshadowing his later actions as Chief Justice. In 1797, President Adams appointed Marshall to the American diplomatic trade negotiations heading to France. Marshall's firm refusal to bow down to the French demands for bribery in what would later be dubbed the XYZ affair resulted in an enthusiastic reception by the nation upon his return, building his reputation even further. In 1799, Adams offered him the position of Associate Justice, but he declined, instead running for a seat in the House of Representatives and winning it. In 1800, continuing his political alliance with Adams, he was appointed Secretary of the State. In January of 1801, after losing to Jefferson in re-election, he was appointed the 4th Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. He also continued serving as Secretary of the State for 2 months, the remainder of Adams' term. During his time as Chief Justice, Marshall and his court presided over many landmark cases and developed a reputation for ruling in favor of federal power, often at the expense of states' rights. These cases would largely go on to solidify the Supreme Court's position as the ultimate arbiter of the legal system. In Gibbons v. Ogden, Marshall's court strengthened the federal power over the economy by ruling that the Congress could control interstate commerce. In Cohens v. Virginia, Marshall's court expanded the influence of the court by ruling that the court could review state laws involving criminal law if the defendant felt their rights had been violated. In McCulloch v. Maryland, the court upheld federal supremacy by ruling that the states could not tax the Second National Bank. And perhaps most importantly, in Marbury v. Madison, Marshall's court established the process of judicial review, giving the court the ability to declare an act of Congress unconstitutional. Through these cases, Marshall set a course for the Supreme Court that we have sailed long beyond his death, and will most likely continue to sail in the foreseeable future. As time has passed, his actions have had a multiplicative effect, as the Supreme Court he helped to create has played, and will continue to play, a major role in defining the law Americans live and die by. Former Chief Justice William Rehnquist gives his opinion on Marshall, saying, "If you could say of any one individual that the court as an institution is the length and shadow of that individual, surely it would be Marshall." Time and time again, Marshall proved himself to be a fighter on two fronts, both on the literal battlefield and the political one. More than that, though, he was always at the center of the fighting, setting precedents and winning battles. He was a renowned war hero, an honorable politician, and an extremely influential Supreme Court justice, establishing processes such as judicial review, which is still in effect today, and defining both what the Supreme Court was and what it would become. And while more than a handful of Americans served on both fronts, few, as Marshall was, were truly successful on both.